Well, hi, good afternoon, and thank you, Mike, for your pearls of wisdom. My name is Dave Williams, G8PUO. I originate from Kent. I now reside in Eastbourne, so travelled up and mentioned to you about the a little project we had going, and in fact it's expanded. I'll just push a button, hopefully that's it. This project started through a local ATV repeater in Hastings, GB3JT, and the need to have some logic and then bolt on some receivers and some other things that we wanted to have a play with a view to giving some of the local clubs some incentive to have an involvement in ATV and construction. The project has expanded somewhat, and I'm just going to touch on some of those in this little presentation, so hopefully I won't waffle too much. If I do, please let me know. VMAC is the name of the project, Video Matrix ATV Controller. It's quite original. And the idea is that we can have some number of inputs, number of outputs, relays, optical, video, audio, and a means of controlling a repeater and also a home station for switching of video and audio. It's gone through a number of incarnations. Originally, I am a developer and I looked at microchip embedded. Then I thought, okay, fine, maybe that's not a route for people, because the idea was to make it open source. Then looked at Arduino. The board was relayed. And I thought, well, maybe that's not the right route either. And eventually settled for the Zero, having come back online. And the idea then that we can then use the good old Raspberry Pi. So the board itself, which I'll come to, is designed to incorporate a Zero, which is the Raspberry Zero, which we've seen outside. I think it was on Chris's little demo. Excellent little board. I do have one, but I've left it in the car. But you can see a little unit there. Video out, audio's little A to D, DAC rather on there, and you can put a camera directly in it. And it's just such a nice little board that it lends itself perfectly. So rather than develop a board with an embedded controller, we can make it a plug-in. And in fact, since the release of this information, there's a few people that asked me for a microchip and an Arduino version. So I've designed a board which is the same footprint as the Zero, but with a microchip, and another one with an Arduino on it. Just seemed like a good idea, as if I haven't got anything to do. So let's just apologise for the PowerPoint. The board is quite complicated in the sense that it's got a lot on there. Essentially, the original idea was to have a video switch and then audio switch, so we can have a number of inputs and a number of outputs, switch concurrently or separately, then a DTMF decoder, real-time clock, a bit of EEPROM on there, or E squared on there, and it expanded into a little developer kit. And the idea is that we can have a one-to-many connection, both on video and audio. So these are the chips that I've used on the board. Typically the matrix is using the 6501, which is a 12 input, 9 output. So we can have one input to 9 outputs, or a combination of those, but you can't have a many to one. So you can't have 2 video inputs, for example, mixed to 1 output. But that's not particularly an issue. Using this idea, I've also taken I did an on-screen display chip, the 7456, which I'm sure you're familiar with, those that have been playing in that area. And I got a loop back within the switch, so we can have an input going through the switch, the matrix, which is fed into the input of the on-screen. And the on-screen output goes back to the input, so effectively we can switch in and out on-screen display to any of the channels on the input and to the output. The reason for that is to save me having a number of on-screen chips on the board. Quick overview. So we've got audio switching, video switching, Squelch PTT control. So the inputs, we've got basically logic input, which for Squelch control, and the outputs have got logic output for PTT on screen. And then we wanted to switch some other things, ancillaries. So relays will be the obvious choice for that. So there's 4 relays. There's 4 opto isolators, or opto isolators with 4 inputs, and a DTMF decoder. And the idea then is they could become essentially a replacement for a repeater controller, both for analog FM repeaters and also the digital ATV repeater. So it's a combined controller that can be used for a number of things. And as a developer kit, there's also been interest from some that have involvements in CCTV for the same board, so it lends itself quite nicely. So I/O, that's effectively what we got. So I looked at initially having some 4-pole 3.5mm jack sockets on there, using some little tails, which perhaps wasn't the ideal, but it was a means of getting more inputs and outputs on that size board. And the reason for that size board is because that's what Eagle will allow me to, even with the version that I've got. So it was a bit confined into the size, and I thought I'd squash as much as I could in. I work in service mount, so service mount was the route to take in some of the components. And the idea then was to make it a part kit for a new project, which is part of the ham kit range of projects. So sort of developing a number of kits, and this being one of them. I won't read all of this out. I'm not into PowerPoint, but in a sense, the idea is to produce a board that we can interface to a Pi. It doesn't have to be raspberry. There's orange Pi, there's banana Pi, there's my Arduino Pi, there's a microchip Pi. It just doesn't interface to an Apple Pi. I'm sure there will be one. And the idea is that the board can be used for ATV repeaters and analog repeaters, or you can use it at the same time, because the idea is the board can be used for more than one repeater. So with 3 outputs on the basic board, you can in theory run 3 repeaters from that board. Yeah, in practice you should be able to as well, but we'll see. That's pretty much covering what I've already said, so I won't go over that too much. I thought rather than have a software decoder for DTMF, go for a conventional IC, which is sort of recognised and works well. And that lends itself then to having not necessarily have a Raspberry on there, but having some other chip on there. Or you can drive it directly from a computer, because I've brought the bus, I2 bus, out, so you can control it from other devices. That's quite small, but a list of the features. So 40-pin header. The software is tended to be open source, so the theme of these boards is they will follow the same format, but we expanded, and there are some others online which I'm looking at with some more inputs and more outputs. So it's typically 6 inputs, 3 outputs. I mentioned the optical relays. There's some I/O on there, so you've got 2 8-bit I/Os to do whatever you want to with, for LEDs on the front panel or push buttons or whatever it is. So the reason for that is that for home use, it'd be nice to have maybe 6 input buttons and 3 output buttons, and you can just instantly press 1 to 3 or 2 to 6 or whatever your input's going to be, or put a keypad on there, because this is intended for development and education as well. A fan output maybe for a PA, analog input, the video inputs and outputs on board are perhaps for a monitor, test card, so in the box we might have a Raspberry Pi playing video or whatever it's going to be. The display is optional, but you can have a 2x16 display or whatever you want to put on there. The board typically is controlled by squared, I2C, apart from SPI, which is needed for the on-screen display. And the rest of it is on the next page. This was the bigger brother version, which is the idea was just having the sockets on there, 3.5mm sockets going to tails to try to compress it. And there's another board again which has got more on it, which has got the 12 inputs and 9 outputs, which essentially goes to a backplane. And I then looked at what the better options were for the backplane, either to take some tails to sockets on the back to BNCs, or some people preferred RCAs or phonos. So this board will allow either. So you can either put BNCs on the back or phonos, and they fit in the same holes. And that's the best of both worlds, really. And then there's a 13 by 9 version of this that I've put together for a rack. So in fact, it replaces a 1U rack rear plate, and basically take the aluminium plate out and you put the PCB version in it and solder the connectors on there, and you've got it all on the one plane. I'm 12 minutes into my 15 minutes. I'm trying not to rush it, but hopefully that gives an overview to the board. The project itself is proved quite interesting. The board's gone through a number of reincarnations, typically because I'm trying to decide, or have been trying to decide, which processor route to take, and the Pi being the one that won the battle, so to speak. The boards, the design has been tested, but the boards are literally in transit on a banana boat now from China, and we can hopefully then populate it in the next maybe week when they arrive, and do some final tests with the board. And learn from it, because it's not just necessarily for repeaters, it could be home, it's a bit of software development, and because of the inputs and outputs you can do a number of different things. It doesn't have to be for ATV. So that's, in a summary, in 13 minutes I think I've given you all the information, so thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Any quick questions?
Price and availability.
Okay.
Price and availability.
Work backwards. I've also got time. Availability is literally waiting for these boards to arrive. If you're happy to work with 0603 type size surface mount components, you can populate it yourself. If not, then I need to populate it. And whilst I work for a company involved with surface mount, I've just purchased an oven, so I'll end up doing that myself. We will do, a colleague of mine. So hopefully, realistically, I'd say a couple of weeks. By the time the boards arrive, and populate it, and then do some tests and bring up software. And then the software itself, once the board's up and running, it's open to the community to perhaps write some software to do whatever they want to do with it, whether it be it repeat or be it home use or whatever. It's a bit of educational use as well. Pricing has been difficult to determine. There's a fair amount on the board. There's a fair amount of work to populate it due to the number of components. We looked at I'm VAT registered, so I need to then look at that side of it. So we looked at 199 top, but that might be coming down. So at the moment it's 165 for the board, complete with all the sockets and components, the old surface mount populated. That may well come down, but that gives you a ballpark figure. So that's without a zero, because unfortunately zeros are on one per customer, unless you know a backdoor route. So.
I mean, when Dave talked to me about this, I've had over the years a number of repeater groups say to me, how do I do logic for an ATV repeater? Yeah. And it struck me that this is just something we should know about. But also there is a home application. I've actually built the Worthing repeater group's matrix audio video switcher. And if you're into ATV at all, there's nothing like having a switcher at home where you can put that camera onto that monitor and that camera onto that transmitter. it makes life so much easier rather than to keep plugging and plugging and plugging.
Yeah.
So this has got applications in both areas, so I thought it'd be useful for Dave to just come along and tell us about it.
Yep. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.